12:30, dear colleagues. I would like to welcome you to this joint meeting of the 31st Animals Committee and 25th Plants Committee meeting. I would particularly welcome all the members of the Plants and the Animals Committee who have joined us, and the alternate observer parties, observer organizations, the Secretariat, of course, and our good friends, translators, who make our life easy, and as well, of course, the CUDA staff who help us to get through this meeting technically. And in particular, I would like, of course, to welcome our Secretary General, Yvonne Higuero, and would like to give her the floor for some introductory remarks. Yvonne, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Madam Chair of the Plants Committee, Mr. Chair of the Animals Committee, members of the Animals and Plants Committees, distinguished delegates and participants, warm greetings to all. It is my honor to welcome you to the first joint online session of the Animals and Plants Committees. I want to begin by congratulating our chairs, Matthias Lorscher and Flor Kumba. They have done a brilliant job leading us through the first days of AC 31 and PC 25. They have laid the solid ground needed for the substantial discussions that will take place next week in the 17 working groups established thus far. I would also like to extend my appreciation to all the members of the Animals and Plants Committees, delegates and participants for their valuable contributions over the last days. We are conscious of the adaptability and flexibility you have shown, mindful of the challenges inherent to online meetings. This is very much appreciated. Both committees this week had their first experiences with meeting and operating in this new environment for CITES. We have by far exceeded participation records of past ACPC meetings and have had 3,500 views across our YouTube channels. Ms. Koumba has also acted as our very first Francophone PC chair, just as we celebrate the Plants Committee's 25th anniversary. In this joint session, our chairs will guide us through items that are of shared interest for the committees, the CITES experts, and its extended family. After today's session, dear colleagues, you will have made strategic contributions to strengthen the implementation of the Convention in matters relating to its strategic vision, species listed in Appendix 1, capacity building, and synergies with IPES. I trust you will be able to add to your achievements by providing significant contributions to advance on an ambitious and exciting new framework for further guidance on non-detriment findings and on identification materials and capacity building. It is my hope that such contributions will raise the visibility of the importance of CITES contributions towards the conservation of our planet's wildlife. The CITES community is known for its enthusiasm, knowledge, and passion for conservation. This will be confirmed next week in the outcomes of the working groups. With this in mind, once again, I kindly seek your flexibility to provide views that, wherever possible, can be resolved in plenary, noting that the schedule for next week is starting to look crowded. And in spite of the world's progress on biotechnology issues and our own progress on biotechnology issues, we are falling short of co-chairs willing to be cloned for these working groups. I am immensely grateful for your hard work, the efforts of the chairs, and for my colleagues in the Secretariat who have been working tirelessly to ensure good meetings. Bon courage today, and thank you, chairs.
Thank you, Secretary General. Thank you, Yvonne, for these inspiring words. We will hopefully take them on board and move forward and expediently. The rules of procedure of these meetings, as we have agreed on earlier this week, they are still valid. Concerning our time limits, I'm sorry that we still have to limit the speaking time of speakers to 5 minutes for members, 4 minutes for observer parties, and 3 minutes to observer organizations. And please don't really use all those minutes, because we really don't have that much time in our hands to advance. And we will also have to be very strict concerning having all the speakers taking the floor, because we really are short on time. And if we both, the chair of the Plants Committee and myself, see that the room is in agreement with a proposed way forward, we will move that way forward and maybe not give the floor to all people who want to have the floor, as we have a way forward. So with this, the first 7 items of our agenda of today, so items 11 from the Animals Committee, the numbers, items 11, 9, 14, 1, 17, 19, 3, 39 and 41, 1 will be dealt with by myself, and at 2 o'clock I have to pass on the floor to my colleague, the chair of the Plants Committee, so please bear with me if I have to rush certain things through. So the first agenda item to look at is agenda item AC 3111, PC 2514 on Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, IPES. It is an oral report from myself, and this oral report is to be noted. I would like to introduce agenda item 11 for the Animals Committee and 14 for the Plants Committee concerning IPES. As you all can imagine, IPES operations have also been significantly affected by COVID-19. Therefore, no plenary meeting of IPES could be held in 2020. The next IPES plenary is on 14th to 23rd June 2021 online, and as instructed in Resolution Conf 18.4, the Secretariat has registered to participate. Since the last meeting of the CITES COP in 2019, several meetings of the IPES multidisciplinary expert panel MEP have taken place. The chairs of the scientific committees of CITES have been to these meetings. Depending on the agenda, the chair of the Animals Committee has participated and given inputs on issues relevant to CITES. Concerning the IPES assessment on sustainable use of wild species, which is quite important for CITES as well, a draft of the assessment has been made available for external review from 16th April to 10th of June 21, and this was drawn to the attention of parties in notification 2021-036. The Standing Committee agreed in September 2020 that the chairs of the Standing Committee, Animals Committee and Plants Committee will maintain oversight of intersectional opportunities for CITES to submit comments to IPES, for instance, in relation to the assessment on sustainable use. However, in view of the timing of the external review of the assessment, clash with the time for the Standing Committee, AC and PC meetings, and the nature of the review process, everyone who wants to look at the text or make comments must register with IPES and be approved as a reviewer. It will not be possible to provide substantive collective CITES input to this process. However, the Secretariat, in cooperation with the SC, AC and PC chairs, will ensure that comments are made to try to ensure that all references to CITES are accurate in the assessment. This closes my oral report, and the committees are now invited to take note of this oral report. I open the floor for any comments. And still, if no comments are made, as is customary, that will mean that the members are in agreement with this, with the fact to note this report. I see nobody from the Plants and Animals Committee has asked for the floor, so I would move to observer parties. Nobody. Observer organizations. I see the PC chair has asked for the floor. No. It is CIC has asked for the floor, so please be short. So CIC, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I will be short. So, CITES, the International Council for Game and Wildlife Management, we welcome the ongoing work of the IPBES, and particularly in relation to the thematic assessment on the sustainable use of wild species. So the overall assessment represents a crucial milestone in understanding the present situation surrounding the sustainable use of wild species. And given its mandate and wealth of experience, as well as data on the sustainable use of wild species, the CITES Secretariat is well placed to both work with IPBES and to provide feedback on the draft assessments. And just referring to document AC31 in Doc 4, the CITES Secretariat gave a number of timely and evidence-based comments on the first draft order, many of which appear to have been incorporated to some extent in the second draft order draft. And while some small inaccuracies, faults, and misleading statements and incomplete or poorly referenced examples remain in the latest draft, this is to be expected in a draft report of this magnitude. And we can only commend the authors for the impressive efforts to date in putting together this comprehensive piece of work. And we're very pleased to note many of the success stories presented in the draft, including those where, through CITES, a well-regulated and managed trade in wildlife has led to recovery of species and their habitats, whilst also benefiting local people. So just to finish off, we'd like to give a big thanks to the authors of this and all those who've been involved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, CIC. I think these comments are also taken note of. Thank you very much. So with this, the committees, the two Plants Committee and the Animals Committee would note the report of the Chair of the Animals Committee. So thank you. So we would move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item AC31, Doc 9 and PC 25, Doc 10. It's on Appendix 1, listed species. Document AC31, Doc 9 and PC 25, Doc 10 and its addendum was prepared by the Secretariat and provides updates on the implementation of Decision 1828. It presents in its annex a technical report on the criteria and methodology used for the rapid assessment of the conservation status of and legal and illegal trade in species and subspecies included in Appendix 1. The addendum outlines some ongoing collaboration with the University of Applied Sciences Van Hal Larenstein in the Netherlands and presents the results of the rapid assessment in the form of a provisional list of 31 Appendix 1 listed species that are proposed to be selected for further assessment. Before opening the floor, I would like to indicate that I propose to establish an in-session working group to review the criteria and methodology used for the rapid assessment, to consider the provisional list of selected priority species in paragraph 5 of the addendum, and to provide guidance to the Secretariat on its further implementation of Decision 1828. The Animals Committee and Plants Committees are also invited to request the chairs of the Animals and Plants Committees and the leads on this item, as we identified in the work plans of the committees, to work with the Secretariat to develop draft decisions aimed at continuing the activities on Appendix 1 species. The Animals and Plants Committees are expected to report the outcomes of this work directly to COP19. So I would like to welcome your initial feedback on the rapid assessment and selection of species, my proposal to form an in-session working group, and the proposed way forward for reporting to COP. We will not have a substantive discussion now. I just want to have your feedback on the proposed way forward. So I would like to open the floor for comments from members of the Plants and Animals Committee. I see the representative of North America, Ezequiel Benitez, has asked for the floor. So, Ezequiel.
Okay. Given the extraordinary circumstances presented by the pandemic and the resultant impacts to lives and workplace, The North American region supports the recommendation by Secretariat and the chair of the co-chair to liaise with the chairs and leads of the Animals and Plants committees in accordance with the respective work plans of these committees to develop recommendations or other follow-up various agenda items. However, it is important that this consultation ensures there is opportunity for regional input. As such, the North American region would encourage a more inclusive approach that makes clear that the chairs of the committees will be requested to provide input in consultation with the members to obtain regional input of these important issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, North America. I think I completely agree with what you are suggesting. I see Europe has asked for the floor. The Animals Committee representative from Europe, Dagmar Sikova.
Thank you very much, Chair. It also always has a delay. Sorry for that. So regarding the agenda item 9 of the Animals Committee on Appendix 1 listed species, we would like to support your suggested way forward and establishing in-session working group to discuss in line with the mandate you outline, the criteria, the list, and the guidance to the Secretariat for the next steps. Let me just in a few words summarize the position of the EU on this agenda item, which we consider to be really very important. Appendix 1 species cannot or need more than simple trade restrictions. We don't want Appendix 1 to become a kind of atrium to extinction. So the range states need to show their responsibility for improving the conservation status of species so that this increased protection, which is already provided to these species by Appendix 1, becomes unnecessary. And we also think that CITES should be there to support these efforts. So this discussion is really important, and we very much appreciate that this review has been prepared and would like to see it developed into a regular exercise in the future. We also appreciate the rapid assessment which has been presented, but we think that discussion on the criteria is needed. As currently presented, it seems that species are primarily selected because they are traded, be it legally or illegally, without really considering the proportionality between trade volumes and the population size. This approach does not put much emphasis on evaluating how close a species is to extinction and how much action it needs. For species with very small population size, which are close to extinction, even very limited trade volume of few individuals may represent a serious threat. Let me give you one example. Astrochelis radiata is ranked as a high priority in the review, while Astrochelis inifera comes lower. But in fact, the other species, Astrochelis inifera, is substantially more endangered with its population of just a few hundred individuals compared to Astrochelis radiata, which has population in the range of millions. Also, let me point out that Vaquita, which has not come out of the review, which is a very special case. So these two examples demonstrate that there is a need next to this database an assessment and a need for parties, experts, to be able to update, provide additional information, and suggest amendments to the list or additional species which did not come out from the review. Also, we would like to stress. Sorry.
Europe, sorry, I think these are very valuable inputs, but I would prefer having them in the working group because we still would like to hear others' views on the way forward. Can you please close?
Well, my last sentence was about species of not wild source, which we feel are also important for the review, and we feel that this should be inserted in the study because captive breeding requires parental stock from the wild, which again may provide a threat to species with very small population size. So this is what I wanted to raise in the plenary as the most important topics, and of course we are looking forward to discussing in the working group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Europe. I don't see any other members from the two committees asking for the floor, so I will open the floor for comments from observer parties. I see China has asked for the floor. China, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. China thanks the Secretariat, UNEP, WCMC, and IUCN for their excellent work in making valuable progress on this topic. We attach great importance to this assessment because of its significance and impact on the future development of CITES. When reviewing the provisional results of the rapid assessment, we raise concerns about the criteria and the methodology illustrated in the annex to the addendum document of AC 31, document 9, and the PC 25, document 10. The result of this approach not quite meet what we expect, that is, to identify Appendix 1 species that could potentially benefit from future actions under CITES. So China believes that we need more time to take advantage of this task to develop a framework that could guide CITES action. China agrees to extend the work beyond COP19 and establish an in-session working group to comprehensively review the criteria and the methodology. Therefore, we desire a narrow mandate for the in-session working group, and if needed, welcome an intersectional working group for other issues, such as listed paragraph 10A, 2, and 3. So we are sure to participate in these working groups. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, China. Thank you. So I see Israel has asked for the floor. Israel, you have the floor. We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Simon. No. We still can't hear you, sorry. So Israel has been disconnected for the moment, so I would give the floor now to UK. UK, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. The UK was part of the informal advisory group which was consulted on the criteria and methodology used for the rapid assessment. And I think at that time we felt that basing the selection criteria on extinction risk, threat from trade, biological vulnerability and management effort was the right approach to identify priorities for future CITES attention. However, now that UNEP World Conservation Monitoring Centre have applied the criteria, we're perhaps surprised, like others, about some of the species in the list of 31 in the addendum of AC 31.10, and agree that it may point to a need to take another look at how the trade criteria in particular are being scored perhaps with greater attention paid to the scale of trade in relation to population status, both in the wild and captivity. So in short, we support the Chair's proposed way forward and the establishment of an in-session working group, and also the consideration of whether an additional criterion that takes into account the impact of captive breeding is needed. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, UK. Israel, second attempt.
Thank you, Chair, for your indulgence. We just very briefly wanted to lend our support to the way forward as proposed by the Chair, and to echo the words of the EU and also the UK, which recently also spoke about the need for looking not just at the results, but also at the criteria themselves. And we would hope that would be in the TOR for the Intersectional Working Group. Thank you.
Thank you, Israel. So I don't see any more parties asking for the floor. So with this, I think I will start striking. I see UNEP WCMC has asked for the floor. UNEP WCMC.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. This intervention is on behalf of UNEP WCMC and IUCN, who jointly developed the rapid assessment methodology outlined in the annex to AP 31.9 PC 25.10 for prioritising Appendix 1 taxes that might benefit from further CITES action. Document AC 31 INF 6 PC 25 INF 8 provides the results of 3 different scoring approaches incorporating criteria on extinction risk, trade threats, biological vulnerability and management effort. And these are unweighted, option 1, weighted due to trade threat, option 2, and weighted by both trade threat and lack of existing CITES measures such as resolutions and decisions, option 3. There was notable consistency between the results of the scoring approaches 1 to 3, with 34 taxa being ranked in the top 50 across all 3 scoring approaches. And we note that the Secretariat lists 31 of these 34 taxa in paragraph 5 of the addendum as suggested for further assessment in line with paragraph A2 of decision 18.28. However, we would point out that the Excel output was intended as a tool to assist the committees with prioritisation depending on the option preferred. And our view is that this process would benefit from one approach being selected rather than choosing species for further review that rank highly across all 3 scoring approaches. We support the recommendation to establish an in-session working group to further consider the criteria and methodology used for the rapid assessment, as well as key factors on which to prioritise Appendix 1 taxa before species are further assessed. We agree with points 1 and 3 of the proposed terms of reference, but with reference to point 2, we consider it premature to consider the provisional list of taxa outlined by the Secretariat in paragraph 5 of the addendum. We envisage that the assessment of the methodology in point 1 could lead to suggestions to further manipulate or filter the data output to enable the working group to develop its own priority list of taxa. We therefore would suggest new text for point 2 of the terms of reference as follows. So based on an approach agreed by the working group, use the data set in AC 31 INF 6 PC 25 INF 8 to develop a list of priority taxa for the next stage of the process. Would you like me to read that again, Chair?
Yes, please. Slowly and clearly.
Of course. Based on an approach agreed by the working group, use the data set in AC 31 INF 6 PC 25 INF 8 to develop excuse me, a list of priority taxa for the next stage of the process. Thank you.
Have you been able to capture that, Secretariat, or should it be read out once more?
Perhaps once more, Mr. Chair, so that everybody fully understood what the new proposed
So UNEP WCMC, you have the floor again. Can you please give the floor to UNEP WCMC operators? I see we seem to have technical issues, so please, UNEP WCMC, can you please put the wording in? No, I see you are given the floor. So yes, so please read it out again, and then afterwards you can also put it in the chat that we have it in writing.
Thank you, Chair. Based on an approach agreed by the working group, use the data set in AC31 INF6, PC25 INF8 to develop a list of priority taxa for the next stage of the process. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we got that. So we have a proposed change to the mandate that I would now like to read out, and then we will see if we can agree on that way forward. So the working group mandate of the in-session working group would be first to review the criteria and methodology used for the rapid assessment presented in INF-Doc AC31 INF6 PC25 INF8 and its annexes 1 and 2, together with the additional criterion mentioned in paragraph 9 to the addendum. 2, based on an agreed approach by the working group, use the dataset in AC31 INF-Doc, I don't remember the number, to develop a list of priority species for further consideration. I think that was what was asked, right?
Mr. Chair, the WCMC has referred to the same documentation, INF documents that are mentioned in the first part of your mandate.
Okay.
AC31 INF6 and PC25 INF8.
Okay. But in addition to paragraph 1, it would ask the working group to agree on one of these approaches, to then use that list to select a list of priority species. So that would be the difference to so far to the paragraph 1. And paragraph 3 would be provide guidance to the Secretariat on its further implementation of decision 1828 as outlined in paragraph 7 to 9 of document AC31 Doc 9, PC25 Doc 10 and this addendum. So this would be the mandate of the working group. Can I ask for comments or suggestions, or if we do agree on this changed mandate for the working group, implying that silence is agreement? I don't see anybody ask. I see Conservation Analytics has asked for the floor. Conservation Analytics, please.
Chair, I just wanted to ask for a clarification. If the first 2 points of that mandate are asking us to review the methodology and the information included in the methodology, then if the next point is then asking us to agree on the information that's already in that document, if we review the methodology and don't think it's correct and we think additional information should be included, then the list of species could be expanded or changed. So it might not actually the working group might not agree that those 3 things in the document are what we should be choosing from if we don't agree with the methodology that's created those lists. So that seems problematic to me.
Okay, thank you. I think I tend to agree that if we change the methodology and if we change the criteria, then we will not have a list to look at, because then first that these criteria have to be applied to the list of species. So I think we really have to rethink that, and I would suggest that the mandate of the working group is to review the criteria and the methodology used, and make changes if agreed to those criteria, and the working group may then choose one of those approaches, or propose also a different approach based on what is agreed in the working group. So I don't really think that we can already develop a list of priority species in that working group, but rather look at the criteria and the methodology and agree on a way forward of these criteria and the methodology to be applied. So with this, I open the floor for Canada. Canada, you have the floor.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Canada was going to seek the same clarification, so I appreciate your clarification on that. In addition, Chair, I recall that UNEP's WCMC mentioned at the next stage. So I take that nuance, and our suggestion would be, as you have proposed, for the working group to evaluate the proposal on the methodology for arriving to such list, or make a different one if needs so. And perhaps a list should not be, in our view, considered until this has been settled, and maybe it's something that could come to the next Animals and Plants Committee, but not before. So work for the next intersessional period. Thank you.
Thank you, Canada. I tend to agree to this as well. So China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And I just echo you and support your recommendation for us. We focus on the methodology and the methods for this analysis, and then maybe we can find a formal list for the next intersessional work.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Secretariat, have you captured this, or did you want me to make an attempt to redraft the terms of reference?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you want to give us a minute, we can try to synthesize the reactions. Perhaps you can, in the meantime, ask if there are further inputs.
Yes, thank you. So I think it is, we have an agreement on how to put this forward, and we will get a proposal of a rewording of the in-session working group. Do we have any other comments from observer parties? I don't see any, so I will take one or two comments from observer organizations. I don't see anybody asking for the floor, so can we have a proposal from the Secretariat on?
No. nothing.
You know, I do think that the way it is written now, review the criteria and methodology used for the rapid assessment presented in Inf. Doc AC 31, Inf. 6, PC 25, Inf. 8, and its annexes 1 and 2, together with the additional criteria mentioned in paragraph 9 to this addendum, and any other points to be raised. I think that would capture what we should be doing, and we would not consider II, which is considered the provisional list of the selected priority species. And III would remain the same, namely provide guidance to the Secretariat on its further implementation. I'm hearing I don't see that I would be on mute, sorry. Can you hear me now? Okay. So there must have been a technical glitch somewhere. So I think the mandate that is as it is now in I covers that we look at the methodology used and the criteria, and together with additional criterion in paragraph 9 and makes suggestions. So I do think that this already covers what we should be doing. We wouldn't be doing II, consider the provisional list. We would skip that, and we would provide guidance to the Secretariat on the way forward. I see Europe, you have asked for the floor. Yes, Europe.
Long time. Yeah, I just wanted to support your approach. I think we can leave the mandate flexible and open, possibly even leave the list in with something like as appropriate, so that the group can discuss and propose guidance on the way forward. So we can have it as you proposed. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Europe, Mexico, and then I will propose a way forward. Mexico, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. We'd just like to recall that CITES' mandate is to regulate international trade in wild species, so we'd like to call on this group in general to respect that and to not go beyond the scope of that mandate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mexico. I think that was quite clear. So I would propose to establish an in-session group with the mandate as outlined in paragraph 10 of document AC 10, AC 9, and PC 10, without the II. And with this, I would now ask for members of the Animals and Plants Committee, if they have interest, to join that working group. The chairs I will come to at the end. So I seek interest from members of the Animals and Plants Committee. I see Animals Committee nomenclature, Animals Committee member from Europe. Okay, that is from the Animals and Plants. I see also representative of Asia from the Plants Committee. Okay, so and also Africa, Plants Committee representative from Africa, Ali Mahamane. So I would now open the floor for observer parties that have interest in joining that working group. I have Germany, United States, South Africa, Austria, Israel, Argentina, Switzerland, Indonesia, United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, China, Zimbabwe, Peru, I think that is it. So I think we have 16, a total of 16 from members and parties.
18 in total.
Okay, 18. Very good. Thank you. Now I would like to open the floor for observer organizations. Could you please clean out the parties and members so that I have only observers? So I think Mexico could also be cleaned out. Thank you. So we have 18 parties and members and 20 observers. So I would like to see if some of you could remove yourself so that we have also 18 and see that you are represented by like-minded. I don't see anybody moving, so I think we still have too many observers. We have 20 now. Please check whether 19, whether you could not be represented by somebody like-minded. One more, and then I can then read out the list. I don't see anybody moving. We do have Safari Club International and Safari Club International twice. So I think that would be a possibility that only one Safari Club International is chosen, and that would make it 18. Okay, thank you very much. So this is the list that we will, it's 19 again. Please, 18, stay now with 18. We have National Resources Defense Council, Safari Club International, WCS, IUCN, Deutsche Gesellschaft für Herpetologie, HSI, EASA, Conservation Analytics, Traffic, FAO, WWF, World Parrot Trust, Cheetah Conservation Fund, UNEP WCMC, Center for Biological Diversity, Parrot Breeders Association, ASA, and European Federation for Hunting. I think with this we do have 18. Is that correct? Okay. So this is the working group. The mandate has also been consolidated. So with this, we can move on to the chairs. I have to note the chairs. The chair, I will chair that working group from the Animals Committee side, and it will be co-chair, will be supported with the co-chair from Asia, alternative representative from Asia, Secretariat, and the Plants Committee will be represented by the alternate representative or the representative for Central and South America and Caribbean, Fabiola Nunes. So I would like to ask these two representatives to quickly voice their consent to be chairing this working group together with myself. I just see that we do have well, it's the representative from Central, South, and America and the Caribbean. Fabiola, you have the floor.
Señor Presidente,
Thank you, Chair. I welcome and very much appreciate the consideration to have me in this working group, and I'm willing to support wherever necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the alternate member from Asia, Secretariat, could you also quickly take the floor and see if you agree to co-chair? Okay, I think we can clear that matter bilaterally. So for the moment, we keep her as as co-chair, and we will see if she can agree. Now she has asked for the floor. So Seiko, you have the floor.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to say yes, I agree with you. I'm
Okay.
happy to help you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So with this, I would move on to agenda item AC31 14.1 PC 2517 on non-determined findings, and I would give the floor to the Secretariat. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The document and its addendum by the Secretariat concern the implementation of decisions 18132 to 18134. The addendum presents a summary and also a synthesis of consultations with the Animals and Plants Committee and with parties through notification on priorities for additional or improved NDF guidance. An additional response by China is available as an information document. The Secretariat explains in the addendum that it is working on a comprehensive proposal for donors that expressed an interest in funding the implementation of Decision 18132. The addendum suggests work streams and a work plan for addressing NDF guidance priorities in case this project could go ahead, and shows the terms of reference for a technical advisory committee that the Secretariat would like to establish if this project were to happen. This technical advisory committee would be convened by the Secretariat. Its main role would be to advise the Secretariat in preparing for and organizing the NDF workshop envisaged under Decision 18132. The development and furthermore the adoption and dissemination of improved or new NDF guidance is unlikely to be completed before COP19, Mr. Chairman, and the Secretariat therefore proposes draft decisions in the addendum to extend this work beyond COP19. In its revised recommendations in paragraph 10 of this addendum, the Secretariat invites the Animals and Plants Committees to first review the Secretariat's suggestions regarding priority gaps and weaknesses and corresponding work streams as proposed in the addendum and its annex. B, to review the draft terms of reference for the Technical Advisory Committee that we propose in paragraph 8 of the addendum. And C, review also the draft decisions that the Secretariat proposes in paragraph 9 of the addendum for submission to COP19. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat, for this introduction. I now open the floor to invite views from the members of the Plants and Animals Committee on the recommendations just read out by the Secretariat. I see North America from the Animals Committee, a representative from North America. You have the floor.
Chair, the North American region strongly supports work on non-determined findings as they are a core element of CITES. for the Secretariat's suggestions regarding priority gaps and weaknesses and corresponding work streams, as proposed in the annex to this addendum. We strongly support the Secretariat's proposal to establish a NDF Technical Advisory Committee consisting of members of the Plants and Animals Committees and a balanced representation of parties, intergovernmental organizations, and non-governmental organizations, and will seek to join the committee if it is established. We also strongly support an international expert workshop on NDFs that will follow up on the progress from the first workshop held in 2008 in Cancun, Mexico, where draft guidance materials on NDFs are to be reviewed, advanced, or complete. We will participate as appropriate. However, we consider that this effort should be collaborative and led by parties and the AC and PC members with the support from the Secretariat, and envision the Technical Advisory Committee functioning as a steering committee, as was successfully done for previous workshop in 2008. The region has proposed amendments to the draft decisions included in paragraph 9 in the addendum, which will address our concerns. We could either read the proposed amendments now or bring them forward for discussion in the in-session working group. The North American region submit a brief information document that provides a link to all documents from 2008 NDF workshop in Cancun to refresh our memories on how the past workshop was accomplished. There are lessons to be learned that are applicable to this new NDF workshop and as its organization. Thank you very much, and please advise me if you want me to read these amendments or do it at the in-session group. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you, North America. I would wait to read out. I would like to seek other comments, and if we don't need an in-session working group, then we would have, of course, to read them out.
Okay.
So I give the floor to Europe. Europe, from the Animals Committee, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. We also consider this work really important and support the way forward. So, yeah, it's important to prepare well for the workshop, and establishment of the Technical Advisory Committee seems the only way forward to prepare. At the same time, we would like still to establish the in-session working group and to clarify certain issues. In particular, there is this first indent in the mandate for the TAC to finalize the list of gaps and weaknesses in NDF guidance materials. But our understanding is that it's this session of the Animals Committee which is in fact agreeing the assessment of the gaps and the topics for discussion of the by the workshop. So we somehow feel that this technical committee should be more to prepare the meeting itself, but it should not be establishing priority and somehow taking over the mandate of the CITES bodies, including this joint ACPC session. So some modification of the small indents A, possibly also B, to clarify that would be useful. Otherwise, we would also have some minor comments on the specific priority list. So also for that, having maybe a brief session of the working group would be useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Europe. Any other members from the Animals and Plants Committee? With this, I would like to seek comments from observer parties. I see Germany. Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Germany welcomes the intensive work that is being done to improve parties' capacities in making non-detriment findings. In fact, NDF are one of the core preconditions for the proper functioning of the Convention. We therefore congratulate the Secretariat for its thorough review and conclusions presented in both documents presented to this agenda item. Since long, Germany, together with Traffic, Save Our Seas Foundation and Blue Resources Trust, is involved in the development of NDF guidances for sharks and rays, perennial plants and timber, and has informed both committees on the progress made. In line with Decision 18.134, paragraph B, I have the pleasure to inform the committees and parties that in close collaboration with Traffic, the 9 steps NDF guidance for plants and timber have been developed into e-courses, which are now available online. For details, please refer to Inf Doc 16 of this Plants Committee. Sorry, that's for the Plants Committee. Yeah. These e-courses make the application of the 9 steps guidances more independent from workshops, while I would like to note that workshops are still considered an appropriate tool to work on NDF capacities. Coming back to the Secretariat's conclusion drawn in the addendum to AC 31 Doc 14.1 and PC 25 Doc 17 and the revised recommendations under 3 about the submission of draft decisions, in principle we agree with the Secretariat's suggestions, but we understand the concerns raised by the representatives and would agree with those as well. In addition, we would like to emphasize the need to include parties and stakeholders' input at various stages, as this is the only way to ensure that real parties' demands are covered in an appropriate way and make use of existing material when prepare future NDF material. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Germany. So I would call on China now, please. China, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Chair. China appreciates the great job the Secretariat has done on compiling the information for this important item. We strongly support the plan for the second International Expert Workshop on NDF, and we highly expect the work on further developing and updating of NDF guidance and case studies. Therefore, regarding the synthesis of gaps and weakness in paragraph 7 of addendum document, we have 2 comments. Firstly, China proposes another thematic group to address the findings of the imbalance of NDF materials in geographical coverage and language coverage, as shown in paragraph 17 to 20 in the AC 31 document 14.1, PC 25 document 17. We recommend drafting a set of work streams under the added thematic group. Secondly, like what has been mentioned in the information document posted on June 2, low risk is an NDF funding, not an emerging priority for addressing. In the case of the 9 steps, NDF guidance has attempted to solve these situations, thanks to Germany. Therefore, China recommends removing low-risk situation involving source code W from the first proposed gap. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, China. I see that we will probably move in direction of having a working group, because I think we have quite substantive comments and we will have changes, proposed changes to the decision. So I don't think we can have the whole debate now in plenary. So my proposal would be to move to a working group, and in the interest of time, I think I will just start doing that now. Sorry for those who have also asked for the floor. I think your views can be presented in the working group, and will also that will be so. So I would propose to have an in-session working group on non-detriment findings with the mandate to review the Secretariat's suggestions regarding priority gaps and weaknesses and corresponding work streams as proposed in the annex of the addendum. Review the terms of reference for the Technical Advisory Committee as proposed in paragraph 8 of the addendum. consider the draft decisions in paragraph 9 of the addendum for submission to COP19, and formulate recommendations for consideration by the Animals and Plants committees later in this meeting. I would suggest that the working group be chaired by the alternate PC representative of Europe, Daniel Wolf, and the alternate AC representative of North America, Cecilia Lougheed. I would like to seek confirmation of these two individuals of their interest in leading the debate in this working group. So Germany and Canada. Yes, Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to serve.
Thank you very much. Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Likewise, happy to help in any way.
Thank you very much. So with this, I would open the floor for interests from the members of the Plants and Animals Committee to show their interest in joining that working group. I see the Animals Committee representative from nomenclature. New Zealand alternate representative of Oceania. AC member from Europe. AC representative of Central and South America and the Caribbean, Daniel Ramadori. PC representative North America, Rosemary Nam. PC representative from Africa, Beatriz Cayota. PC representative of Central and South America and the Caribbean, Fabiola Nunez. And I think that is it from the members and alternate members from the two committees. So I now would like to open the floor for observer parties. I have China, Mexico, UK, Argentina, Canada, United States, Israel, Australia, Japan, Germany, Indonesia, Georgia, Namibia, Gabon, Zimbabwe, and Thailand, and Cambodia.
That makes a total of 24.
So we have 24 parties and members. So now I would ask you to clean the screen and would ask observer organizations to voice their interest. So I see 24.
We have 25 parties and members,
yeah.
Mr. Chair, so perhaps that's suitable.
Yes, that's good. Okay, so it's EIA US, Safari Club International, FAO, World Parrot Trust, BRT, Traffic, HSI, WCS, IUCN, Defenders of Wildlife, Dallas Safari Club, International Wood Products Association, Center for Biological Diversity, Sea Shepherd Legal. I see Chile has come in. As another party, Born Free USA, European Federation for Hunting, German Association for Herpetology, CIC, WWF, AWI, UNEP WCMC, ZSL, Traffic. Then I have also, I think Colombia has asked, and also South Africa as 2 additional parties. Then Cheetah Conservation Fund and Forest-Based Solutions. Okay, fine. Quite a group, so I think it is a core topic of our convention, so I think that deserves to have a good representation. So with this, I close this item and would move on to item 17, specimens produced through biotechnology. The document by the Secretariat presents a study to study wildlife products produced from synthetic or cultured DNA as set out in the annex to document AC 31, Doc 17 and PC 25, Doc 20. The work on specimens produced through biotechnology is ongoing through an intersectional working group of the Standing Committee and will be brought to the attention of the Animals and Plants Committees as appropriate when the work of the Standing Committee working group concludes. The Animals and Plants Committee are therefore invited to take note of document AC 31, Doc 17, PC 25, Doc 20, and to request the chairs to provide inputs on behalf of the Animals and Plants Committees to discussions at the 74th meeting of the Standing Committee. I would like to open the floor for views from the members of the Animals and Plants Committee on this proposed way forward. I see North America from the Animals Committee has asked for the floor. So, Ezekiel, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair. The North American region notes the study on wildlife products produced through biotechnology presented by the Secretariat. The North American region supports the original recommendations from the Secretariat under AC 31, Doc 17, and Doc 20 for PC 25. Paragraphs 10A and B, inviting the Animals and Plants Committee to establish an intersectional working group to review the study and to draft scientific guidance for consideration of the Standing Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, North America. Any other members of Animals and Plants Committee? I open the floor for comments from observer parties. I don't see any. I see observer organization, WCS, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll try to be brief. And this is this intervention is made on behalf of Wildlife Conservation Society, Center for Biological Diversity, and NRDC. We know with some concern that CITES is not providing guidance to parties on their responsibility to regulate specimens produced through biotechnology. The report we see here illustrates how rapidly this technology is evolving and the potential for products to appear to be CITES specimens. But parties shouldn't get trapped in an endless cycle of learning about the processes. 3 more years of discussion and analysis of technology is likely to unearth more processes. But CITES regulates products and specimens, not processes. And these products, if they appear to be or are labeled or made from CITES specimens, do create enforcement concerns. And to ensure the trade in these products is not detrimental to CITES species, it's essential they're regulated by CITES. And the definition of specimen in Resolution 9.6 Rev provides the support. And we just encourage parties, it's really great to keep learning about the technology, but we encourage amendment of ResConf 9.6 and a recommendation from these committees to make it clear to all that CITES already covers these specimens. And while we want to continue to learn more, we can't wait another 4 years to actually clarify to parties that they must regulate these specimens. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, WCS. I don't see anybody else asking for the floor. I would like to come back to North America. You suggested to form an intersectional working group looking at this study and making recommendations. I haven't heard any support for this proposal, and I suppose you would also agree that an intersectional working group is not the right way to go forward now, because we don't have any other meeting of the scientific committees to look at these issues. So I would like to seek your comments. Yes, North America, you have the floor.
The pandemic and the resulting impacts to lives and the workplace. The North American region supports the recommendation by the Secretariat to liaise with the chairs and leads of the Animal Plants Committee.
Okay.
In accordance with respective work plans of these committees to develop recommendations in order to follow on various agenda items. It is important again that these consultations ensures there is opportunity for regional inputs. In general. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, North America. So I conclude then that the committee notes the document and agrees that with the proposition that the two chairs in consulting their committees represent the views of the committees at the next standing committee meeting, after also consultation with the Secretariat on this issue. I see China has asked for the floor. China, you have the floor.
Sorry for interrupt you for your resulting. And regarding the biotech item, the intersectional working group of the standing committee tried to seek advice and guidance from the scientific committees on some matters. And, given the delays in the meetings due to the pandemic and the limitations of the online meeting of SC73, and for the discussion, and also following the rules of procedure, we hope to find a way to gain timely support from scientific committees. So we prefer an intersectional working group with a mandate to help with the, provide scientific guidance and advice for the standing committee working group in some matters. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, China. You know, the problem is from a procedural perspective, it is difficult to have an intersectional working group now, because it cannot be coming back to the scientific committees for approval. So I think what would really be best is that, as I explained, that the chairs of the two committees, in consulting with their committees, provide feedback to the standing committee whenever it draws up the decisions and discusses the matter. So I think this is the most practical way forward, and I hope you can agree. Okay, thank you very much. So that would be the conclusion of this item. I think it is clear how we proceed, and I would now move to I still have 10 minutes left. I would like to start the agenda item 19 and see if we also can conclude this in a short time, that I don't take too much time from my colleague. So it is document 19.3. The document AC31 Doc 19.3 and PC 25 Doc 21 was submitted by the chairs of the Animals and Plants Committees and provides an overview of work implemented under Decision 18172. It notes the ongoing work by the Intersectional Working Group on captive bred and ranch specimens established by the Standing Committee after COP18 under Decision 18173. Annex 1 contains the update of the review of CITES provisions related to trade in specimens of animals and plants not of wild source that was produced by the Secretariat. It had previously been made available as information document COP18 Inf 28. Annex 2 contains comments and recommendations previously made available in document AC70 Doc 31.1 Annex 8. Annexes 3 and 4 contain 2 discussion documents from the Standing Committee Intersectional Working Group, which will report to the Standing Committee at its next meeting. Committees noting the large volume of information for the committees to review, the limited time we have for discussion at this meeting, the parallel process on captive bred and ranch specimens that is ongoing in the Standing Committee, and the problems we have encountered with meeting scheduling as a result of COVID-19, I would propose that on behalf of the Animals and Plants Committees, the 2 chairs provide inputs to the discussion on this item at the 74th meeting of the Standing Committee to ensure that the scientific committees remain involved in future work on this matter. I don't think we can really advance a lot here at this meeting, and so we can assure that this work is kept on the plate of our 2 committees. We would suggest that way forward. So I open the floor for comments from committee members on this proposed way forward. I see North America has asked for the floor, from North America from the Animals Committee.
Thank you, Chair. The North American region notes the document AC31 19.3. However, this work did not advance when the disruptions created by the ongoing pandemic. The region does not support the proceed approach for the committees to only take note of the document and endorse the chairs of the committees to provide input on behalf of AC and PC to the Standing Committee. We consider that the committees have not implemented the most important item on Decision 18172 to identify the key scientific issues and challenges in the application of the Convention to non-wild specimens and provide the recommendations to address these issues and challenges to the Standing Committee. Decisions and recommendations pertaining to non-wild specimens affect implementation of the Convention. As such, we see value in the scientific committees providing recommendations to the Standing Committee. AC and PC could provide recommendations to the Standing Committee working group on this issue, so that the views of the scientific committees can be incorporated into the work of the Standing Committee. However, we can understand in the interest of time, that it may be better to postpone ACPC's discussions until after COP19 and propose Decision 18172 direct to the Animals and Plants Committee extended until after COP19. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. I mean, I completely agree that these 2 committees, they must make recommendations on these issues. And I think your proposed way forward to extend the Decision 18172 would make this possible as well. So yes, I seek any other comments from Animals and Plants Committee members. I see Europe Animals Committee. Dagmar, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, we see merit in what Hesigio just suggested, because we feel that parties should really have still an opportunity to discuss these issues. At the same time, I'm not now exactly aware of the timing of the different steps, because we would not like the discussion to be too much postponed or really slip into the next intersessional period. So we will be in your hands to find a proper way forward to set up such a procedure which would enable parties to make their inputs, but to proceed at the same time at reasonable pace. Thank you.
Thank you, Europe. Any more comments from members from the two scientific committees? I see the Animals Committee representative from Central, South America and Caribbean, Daniel Ramadori. You have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, sir. Our region would also support what was suggested by the North American representative. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So I see the Plants Committee representative of North America, Rosemary Nam, you have the floor.
Chair, I would like to align myself with the Animals Committee North American representative, but from a plants perspective, we agree.
Thank you very much. I would like to open the floor for observer parties' comments. I don't see any. So with this, I think the proposal is that the Animals Committee proposes to extend the decision 18.1.7 for it proposes the decision 18.1.7 for extension to the standing committee or to the COP directly. I need some guidance from the Secretariat to make sure that I say the right process again.
The current wording of decision 18.172, which is directed to the Animals and Plants Committee, asks you to identify the key scientific issues and challenges in the application of the convention to non-wild specimens and provide the recommendations to address these issues and challenges to the standing committee in time for its 73rd meeting.
Okay.
So it would have first to go to the standing committee, this time at its 74th meeting.
Okay, so that's what we will do then on that issue. With this, I conclude that item as well. We don't have any more time to go into Appendix 3 nomenclature, I think, and also the periodic review of species included in Appendix 1 and 2. I think we can finish these two items at our meeting when we reconvene on the 21st of June. So with this, I think I will give the floor now to my colleague from the Plants Committee. Floor, you can get the lead, and I think we will have to change VIPs. So with this, thank you everyone for contribution and your support. So you have to tell me what I have to do to get out. Okay, so.
Merci. Il a fallu que je me connecte.
Thank you. I had to be connected as a VIP as well, so apologies for the delay. Thank you to the chair of the Animals Committee for handing the baton over. I hope to do as well as you have. So we will go on to the next item of our agenda, which is on the CITES strategic vision. The Animals Committee and the Plants Committee are invited to identify the objectives of the CITES strategic vision, which do not appear to correspond to the resolutions and decisions that they have been associated with, and to provide recommendations to the Standing Committee on the information presented in Annex 1 of the document. Members will find it particularly interesting to see to what extent the scientific decisions and resolutions seem to correspond well to the objectives of our CITES strategic vision. But in paragraph 6 of the document we will be looking at, there didn't seem to be a clear objective under which one could bring together all the resolutions and decisions that are species specific. And so the Secretariat suggests that those measures which are that are more concerned with the conservation measures, the management of trade, as well as the collection and exchange of information on the species concerned, should be linked to the objective 2.5 and other specific resolutions for species, in particular in the fight against fraud and illegal trade, should be put in correspondence and linked to Objective 3.5. The chairs would like to know the point of view of members on this document, and in particular the objectives which are linked to resolutions and decisions specific to the species. So now I would like to open the floor to members of the committees. Members of the committees, the floor is open. We have China as a representative for Asia. China, the floor is yours.
Sorry, we are representing China to speak. Maybe we can wait later.
Yes, please. Excusez-moi, j'ai demandé que.
I beg your pardon. Yes, I would like to hear, first of all, from members of both committees. So if you could perhaps withdraw your request for the floor for the moment. And now I will give the floor to the representative for Central, South America and the Caribbean. Fabiola Núñez, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And we'd like to thank the Secretariat for the document, and we support the strategic vision and the work that has been carried out, because we recognize the importance of looking for the link to other multilateral environmental agreements and other organizations in biodiversity. However, we think there is still work to be done with more detail, and the work that now falls on us in the Plants and Animals Committees is to go through this so that we can present the recommendations. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you very much to the representative of Central, South America and the Caribbean. Are there other members who would like the floor? No, I see no further requests for now. So now I open the floor to the observer parties.
Ma liste de demandes est la suivante.
Request for the floor is as follows. First of all, I will give the floor to China, then to Brazil, then the United States. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. China appreciates the Secretariat finishing the comparative analysis after COP18. The significant analysis is helpful to the enforcement of CITES and further modification of strategic vision. China basically agrees with the analysis results in AC 31.8/PC25.9. With regards to Objective 2.2, sharing information and tools, and Objective 2.3, having sufficient information, are the basis to successfully implement CITES and very important to the enforcement of the Convention. We think that RESCONF 11.19 Identification Manual and RESCONF 16.7 non-detrimental findings have been continuously developing and are setting up information sharing platforms through the Secretariat, which supports the Objective 2.2 and Objectives 2.3. China suggests adding above both resolutions into Annex 1 against Objective 2.2 and 2.3. Objective 3.7 of investment in building capacity of CITES is crucial to effectively implement and enforce the Convention. So far, the Objective 3.7 was mapped to only the RESCONF 3.4 on technical cooperation. China suggests reviewing and updating RESCONF 3.4 or drafting a new resolution on financial cooperation in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Merci.
Thank you to the representative of China. Would it be possible to briefly repeat the amendments that you would like, in particular on the resolutions and the various objectives, so that the Secretariat and I may take full notes? Thank you.
Chine, vous avez la parole.
China, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We recommend add RESCONF 16.7 and RESCONF 11.19 to be included in the table against Objective 2.2 and 2.3 in the table. Is that clear? Okay, thank you.
Chair. Yes, it's clear, says the Chair. It's noted now. I now give the floor to Brazil.
We first of all like to thank the Secretariat for having prepared this document. We think it is very useful to map and analyze the resolutions and decisions that we approve in the conference of the parties. What I'd like to highlight, and I'm not sure exactly how this would come as a recommendation to the standing committee, isn't in fact in Annex 1, but it's actually the work that has been prepared regarding Annex 2 of the document. I think what Annex 2 shows, with more than 20 pages of convention reporting requirements, is that I'm really worried if countries, if parties are truly able to report to this number of information requirements, and if this large number of requirements really do contribute to CITES' strategic vision and its objectives, especially if they are not being responded by parties, or if it's too hard to process all the information that is being received. And I think that it's very important to see what other kinds of measures could be adopted to obtain this information. If this could be obtained automatically through digital permits, or if some information can be bundled up in annual reports or annual biannual implementation reports. But I really think that Annex 2 shows that we're using an instrument to try to implement our resolutions and ultimately try to achieve CITES' strategic vision that might not be efficient and might not correspond to what the parties to the parties' human resources, in the sense of being able to respond to these reporting requirements. Thank you.
Thank you to the representative for Brazil. I have taken note of your concerns. I think we will draw up recommendations for the Standing Committee, and will take into account the considerations of China, and that may in part respond to your questions. I will now give the floor to the United States. You have the floor, USA.
Les États-Unis, votre micro est éteint.
Could you please start again from the beginning?
Cela ne fonctionne toujours pas, on vous écoute pas.
Hello? Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Apologies for the technical difficulty. The United States thanks the Secretariat for its efforts to implement Decision 18.24, paragraph B. We believe that the analysis presented in Annex 1 to document AC 31 Doc 8, PC 25 Doc 9 effectively captures the current CITES policies found in the resolutions and decisions in support of achieving that objective of the CITES strategic vision. We believe that the Secretariat's mapping analysis will help facilitate the discussion on new or revised indicators, and that the analysis should be forwarded to the Standing Committee for its consideration. We also offer the following comments and observations. The Secretariat's assessment that only a few decisions and resolutions align with Objective 3.7, investments in building capacity of CITES are prioritized, coordinated, and their success monitored to ensure stepwise improvement through time, demonstrates a potential gap where future work may be needed. The successful implementation of CITES will require investment from parties' capacity for enforcement and compliance, acquisition of scientific information, and access to tools, resources, and knowledge. With regard to linkages between CITES and other multilateral environmental agreements, while we agree that it is necessary, we continue to caution that it is important to ensure that such engagement by the committees and the Secretariat on such relevant activities is commensurate to the benefits conferred to CITES and does not overextend resources or go beyond the scope and mandate of CITES. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci, les États-Unis.
I thank the USA for their presentation, and I would now like to open the floor for observer parties. If you wish to take the floor, we have a few moments for requests for the floor. That is not the case, so now I open the floor to observers. If you have comments to make, and please be as brief as you can. Thank you. So we have once more a request from the representative of Central South America and the Caribbean, Fabiola Núñez. Would you like the floor? Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would like to highlight and thank the working group for the efforts and the work that's been carried out. And I'd like to also mention the efforts made by the Secretariat to look at all the efforts made by parties. We think it is key so that we can ensure the implementation of the convention. So we support the document, and we think it's important that we ensure that there is greater participation from the parties within this framework for capacity building. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci. Madame la représentante.
Thank you to the representative for Central South America and the Caribbean. I would now like to open the floor to observers fairly rapidly so that we can arrive at conclusions on this item. Thank you. Observers. We have a request for the floor from the USA now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me? Okay.
Allez-y, Madame la représentante des États-Unis.
Please go ahead, USA.
On vous entend plus.
We cannot hear the USA at the moment.
Me now? Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States supports efforts to develop a comprehensive capacity building framework in response to the need for greater coordination, transparency, and accountability in capacity building efforts aimed at improving the effectiveness of CITES. The parties face a significant and diverse set of capacity building needs, and many are grappling, apologies, sorry.
I think you are speaking to the next item on our agenda, United States.
Oui, Madame la représentante des États-Unis.
United States, we are currently on item 9, which is the document AC31 Doc 8 or PC25 Doc 9, and we haven't yet finished on that item. So maybe you could intervene when we come to the next item. I just asked the observers if they would like to speak. I haven't had any request for the floor. Do we still have any requests from observers? Otherwise, I can move on to the conclusions of this item.
Pas de demande de parole, donc nous allons.
I see no request for the floor, so we will conclude on this. The Animals Committee and the Plants Committee approved the linkage of the CITES strategic vision objectives for 2021-2030 to the resolutions and decisions of CITES presented in Annex 1 of document AC31 Doc 8, PC25 Doc 9, in particular the linkage of resolutions and decisions which are species specific to objectives 2.5 and 3.5. The committee invites the Secretariat to add that which has been added by Brazil, China, Brazil and the United States of America to the presentation before it's presented to the Standing Committee. So I close this item of our agenda before we move on to the next item, which is on capacity building. It is document AC31 Doc 10 and PC25 Doc 11. The initial report by the Secretariat covers information which the Secretariat was charged with putting together and analysing responses to the questionnaire included in notification 2020/027, questions asked of other multilateral environmental agreements concerning the way in which they coordinate efforts for capacity building within their conventions and the needs in terms of capacity building expressed by parties in their reports on implementation. The Secretariat has put together the principal key elements of this information and has drawn up 4 recommendations for the Animals Committee and the Plants Committee, and that they may wish to examine and submit to the Standing Committee in accordance with Decision 18.40. It is on 4 points which are described in paragraph 3 of the addendum document, and they are then summarized in the text of paragraph 5. The working group, the Intersectional working group of the Standing Committee on Capacity Building includes 4 representatives of the Animals Committee and the Plants Committee: Cecilia Lohid, Committee for the Animals, Rosemary Nam, Committee for the Plants, Fabiola Nunez, Plants Committee, Yang Zhen, Plants Committee. The working group could meet in order to discuss this question between today and COP19 on reservation of the availability of financial resources from external sources. The members of the committees of the Plants and Animals Committees are requested to examine the report of the Secretariat in simultaneously with the recommendations suggested as they appear in paragraph 3 or in the text which is summarized in paragraph 5. In my opinion, it would be important for the Plants and Animals Committees to continue to be represented and participate actively in the later deliberations of the Standing Committee on this issue. It is therefore requested of the Plants and Animals Committees that they consider an additional recommendation, which is as follows. We request the Standing Committee to ensure that the opinions of the Animals and Plants Committees are reflected in its discussions, ensuring that there is continued participation of the full representatives in the Intersectional Working Group of the Standing Committee. So now I open the floor to the members of the Animals and Plants Committees to share their comments. Thank you. Now, we have a request for the floor from the representative of Central, South America and the Caribbean. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Would you confirm that you can hear me, please? Yes. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to highlight the effort that's been made by the Secretariat to analyze the contributions from the parties on the subject. We know it's a key part of raising the effectiveness of the implementation of the Convention, and so we support the document. And it's important to ensure that, as you have said, that there is a more active participation by members of the committee, with the aim of having this integrated framework for capacity building. On the proposal that you have made today, we agree with the proposal presented. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I thank the representative. I apologize, I had a few technical problems, had to reconnect. Would the representative from Central, South America and the Caribbean, could they please summarize very briefly their intervention for me, please? Madam Chair, can you hear me? Perfect. So to summarize, we would like to highlight the efforts made so that we could have this document which summarizes very well all of the contributions that have been made by the parties to this very important and essential subject, so that we can increase the effectiveness of the application of the Convention. We support the document and we see that it is very positive to have this integrated framework for capacity building. On the proposal that you've made today, we also express our support to the proposal that you have made today. Thank you very much. Thank you for having repeated a rapid summary just for me. Thank you, I appreciate it. The request for the floor, the floor is open, so any members of the committee who would like to request the floor? Otherwise, I will move on to the observer parties. Thank you. So we have Mexico. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We consider that if we set up a framework for capacity building, the approach and method for prioritization should not just be a system based on points that are assigned to the parties by external assessors. Despite having high levels of assessment, there can be specific needs for capacity building which may not appear in the scoring. the parties can evaluate their needs for capacity building and inform the Secretariat. The conceptual model could be a simple system of picking up and prioritizing these needs. It must be practical and it should not create additional work, such as a larger number of reports by the parties. So we would suggest a few amendments to the recommendation that will be presented to the Standing Committee, and we can send that to the Secretariat through the chat. And also, in addition, we would like to say that activities for capacity building that have been supported by Mexico, and since we had no opportunity to speak on this when it was presented in document 14.1 on NDFs, we would like to repeat our country's interest in participating in the organization, and as the headquarters for the second International Expert Working Group on NDFs in 2021, we have the funds necessary externally to cover the costs. Thank you. Thank you to the representative of Mexico. Please do send your suggested amendments to the Secretariat. Now I will give the floor to the USA, and we are covering the discussion on decision 18.40. Thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me now? We are happy to speak again to this issue, and our apologies. The United States supports efforts to develop a comprehensive capacity building framework in response to the need for greater coordination, transparency, and accountability in capacity building efforts aimed at improving the effectiveness of CITES. The parties face a significant and diverse set of capacity building needs, and many are grappling with ongoing compliance issues. Previous decisions adopted by the parties recognize the need for developing effective capacity building and compliance assistance support, and for ensuring that such activities are consolidated and coherent. The information presented in the annexes to Document AC31, Document 10, PC25, Document 11, and the addendum suggests that overall parties support a capacity building framework. We support the revised recommendations, but would like to offer some amendments to paragraph 6B of the revised recommendations to recognize that the capacity building challenges faced by the parties, and also to recognize and explicitly acknowledge the CITES strategic vision. We can read out our suggested revisions if the committees wish. We also support the organization of a workshop as described in decision 18.46D, and we may be able to contribute some funding toward the development of a capacity building framework. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci.
I would like to thank the representative of the United States. We have noted that you have amendments to propose. I would invite you to make them available to the Secretariat. The Animals and Plants Committees would like to thank you for the support that you are providing to this decision. The floor is open to observers now. Could I ask you to be brief? Point of order from Mexico. A point of order from Mexico. Could I ask you if you would like to take the floor? Please do go ahead, madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do apologize for taking the floor once again, but I have been told that there was some problem with the translation of my statement. We want to be involved in the next NDF workshop when there is funding available. We are willing to host the workshop when funding is available. We do not have the funding ourselves. Thank you, Madam, for that clarification. We have certainly taken note of that. The floor is now open to observers. Do you have any views on this agenda item? I see no requests for the floor. I see that the recommendations presented are supported. We are therefore going to convey them to the Standing Committee as outlined in Para 3 of AC 31 Doc 10 and PC 25 Doc 11 Addendum Rev 1. In order to wind up our discussion, let me say the following. The Animals and Plants Committees recommend a conceptual model for capacity building be developed, and that such a model is necessary. A number of different elements have to be taken into account when this framework is developed. There is a need for broad stakeholder consultation when it comes to drafting this concept model for capacity building. And fourthly, there is a need to ensure that online and in-person capacity building has to be taken into account. These committees recommend that ask that the Standing Committee take committee's views into account in their ongoing discussions by allowing for participation of the 4 participants in the Intersectional Working Group of the Standing Committee. This brings us to the end of this agenda item. We are now going to move on to item 18, identification materials. This report was drafted by the co-leads of the working group and the Secretariat. I would like to give the floor to the working group chair to introduce this agenda item. You have the floor.
Mesdames, Messieurs les présidents du groupe de travail, pouvez-vous...
Could I ask the working group co-chairs to introduce this agenda item? We're talking about the document relating to identification materials. I would like to invite the Oceania alternate. As I understand it, Oceania is going to take the floor on this. You have the floor, sir.
Yes, good evening. I was expecting the Plants Committee chair of this working group to introduce this item. So if Rosemary's there, then she has a prepared introduction. But if she's not, then I'll happily introduce this and thank the working group members and the Secretariat for all the work they have done on this working group. What we did, we concentrated on developing...
Excusez-moi.
I do apologize, sir. Rosemary Nyam is here, the North American representative, so if you would prefer her to take the floor, that is certainly possible. She does have a statement ready. I do apologize for interrupting you, sir, but I'm going to give the floor now to the North America representative now. Please do go ahead, madam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you to my co-chair, you, for having my back. I wish to express our deep appreciation to all the working group members for their input and participation in this important working group. The ACPC Joint Working Group on Identification Materials has been very active since the end of last year and has agreed that a new resolution on identification materials, which would replace Resolution Conf 11.19 Rev Cop 16, would be a preferable way forward. The initial draft resolution text was prepared by the co-chairs, and the working group has reviewed it and provided inputs to that document. On the basis of the working group's revised draft resolution, we consulted with the Secretariat's legal team, and the Secretariat has made a further revision and prepared the draft resolution found in the annex to the document AC 31 Doc 15 PC 25 Doc 18 Addendum. The Animals and Plants Committees are invited here to review this draft resolution. In addition, the working group felt that there was much work we still have yet to do, and we may wish to draft decisions to continue this work post COP19. In terms of feedback, we hope that we are almost there with the draft resolution, and therefore, if it is possible, we would propose an in-sessional working group. If that's not possible, we would then have to defer this work to even the draft resolution to post COP19, but we think we're almost there on the resolution, so that's our preferred way forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci, Madame.
I would like to thank the North America region representative. I see that the alternate for Oceania has requested the floor. You have the floor, sir.
If we do resolve the final points of the resolution, new decisions may not be necessary, but if we can't come up with a definite resolution, then we will need to have some decisions to carry on the work of this working group after COP19. So not quite sure which way it will go, but certainly the chairs feel as though we're getting pretty close to having that draft resolution resolved. Thank you.
I would like to thank the alternate representative for Oceania, and I managed not to cut you off, sir. I'm certainly not going to do that a second time. We have taken note of your comments. The floor is now open to ACNPC members. We've heard from the co-chairs on this item. They would tend to be in favor of an in-session working group. Could I ask committee members to give us their views on this matter? Do we need an in-session working group? The floor is open. I was going to say I see no request, but I jumped the gun. I would like to give the floor to Europe. Dagmar, you have the floor, to be followed by the Africa region representative.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Well, regarding the need for the in-session working group, we will listen to the advice from the Secretariat whether it's needed because of the process, whether there is a need to amend or draft some decisions. I just wanted to comment the outcome from the working group, which has brought forward really an excellent document. And we agree with the resolution as it is proposed. We just have one minor suggestion. We would like to draw your attention to paragraph 3, small a, of the resolution, which requests the Animals and Plants Committees to where materials are lacking or inaccurate, etc., to encourage parties to develop new or update materials. In our review, it seems that there is a missing element or missing step in the process, because someone needs to identify the situations where materials are lacking or inaccurate, and this should be, in our view, the Animals Committee. So probably it should be possible to resolve this situation with very small amendment to this paragraph, which would then read, request the Animals and Plants Committee to small a, and then we would add the word identify, so it would read identify where materials are lacking or inaccurate, or where improvements might be made on existing identification materials. And then we would add the word and, encourage parties when appropriate to develop new or updated materials. So we would add this new task for the Animals and Plants Committees to identify where materials are lacking or inaccurate. But this is a very minor amendment, and otherwise we are very satisfied with the outcome of the work. Thank you very much.
Merci, Madame la représentante.
I would like to thank the representative for Europe. We have taken note of the minor amendment proposed. We seem to be heading towards the creation of a working group, and if the working group does meet, you will be able to contribute to those discussions. I would now like to give the floor to the representative for Africa on the Plants Committee, Mr. Ali Mahaman. You have the floor. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. We would like to congratulate the Secretariat and the working group for these impressive results of their work. We support the proposals made by the working group. Thank you, Madam. I would like to thank the representative for the Africa region, and I now give the floor to the Plants Committee representative for Central and South America and the Caribbean. You have the floor. Thank you, Madam Chair. We would like to thank the co-chairs of the working group and the Secretariat for the excellent work done on this document. We would like to join those who've expressed support for the draft resolution. And we would also like to say that we would support the amendment proposed by the representative for Europe today. Thank you, Madam. I would like to thank you for that statement. I get the sense that the committee members tend to support the setting up of an in-session working group. Let me invite observer parties to take the floor if they are not in favor of setting up a working group. That would help us move forward on this. And I would please ask you to request the floor only if you are not in favor of our having a working group, because that will enable us to move towards setting that group up quickly. I see no request for the floor, so I get the sense that observer parties would also tend to support a working group on this item. I would like to give the floor to observers now. Could I ask if there are any observers who would not support an in-session working group? Please take the floor if you are not in favor of an in-session working group. I see no requests for the floor. I am going to set up a working group now.
Item 18. I propose the establishment of a working group with the following mandate. A. Review the proposed draft resolution contained in the annex to the document AC 31 Doc 15, PC 25 Doc 18 Addendum, and if needed, revise it for consideration of the Animals and Plants Committee and onward submission to the Standing Committee. B. Or, as an alternative, draft COP19 decision that would allow an intersectional working group to continue its mandate to revise and finalize the draft resolution. Maintenant, je demanderai.
I would now like to ask the co-chairs of the working group to continue co-chairing this in-session working group. Could I invite you to formally confirm your willingness to do so? I would like to give the co-chairs the floor. That is Rosemary Nam and Hugh Roberts.
Happy to continue to do that. It sounded as though there was general agreement about the draft resolution as it stands with the minor amendments in the EU, but hopefully it will be more of a drafting group rather than a working group. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to give the floor to the North America region representative. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think based on the interventions we've heard, I see a need not for an in-session working group, but maybe a small drafting group to work on the resolution. I also think, though, that there is that some decisions are needed to continue the work, because as we heard in some of the interventions, we haven't identified which identification materials are really needed. I do think some simple decisions to continue this work post COP19 would be beneficial, and perhaps the drafting group could handle those too. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam North America representative. Indeed, you're quite right. With the amendment proposed earlier, what we're looking for is perhaps a small drafting group. But what I would suggest is that we put together a drafting group, and then I will tell you what the final decision is. China, you have requested the floor. You have the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I appreciate the Secretariat and the Intersectional Working Group for the great job and welcomes the progress on the identification materials. Regarding the draft resolution, the adding of the word specimens in the title should be cautious. The term is defined in the text of CITES and explained in other resolutions. The draft resolution needs to follow this background. And we propose to, change or add, or would you please consider a mandate of discussing a possible discussion for a decision, other than to draft this or finalize this draft resolution for the further work. Thank you, Chair.
I would like to thank the representative of China. We've noted your comments and the working group will take them into account. I think we should stick to the term working group for the group that we are going to set up. I would now like to draw up the list of those who are going to participate in the working group. I would turn first to Plant and Animals Committee's members. The alternate member for North America, you have the floor. Please do go ahead.
Non, apparemment, il y a plus de demandes de parole. Aussi,
There, you don't seem to wish to take the floor, but Ezequiel Benitez, you have the floor. Could you please let me know whether you're requesting the floor because you would like to participate in the working group or for another reason? Please let me know.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. Just to support what my colleague from North America, representative for Plants Committee, mentioned, if it's practical, to have a small drafting group to work on this matter rather than a big in-session working group as such, probably to have a concrete outcome, just to work on the drafting for the resolution that can be more practical. So I was wondering, what is your position to endorse it, or seems like you are creating a full contact group, just to clarify, or if you consider the suggestion from my colleague in North America as feasible one. Thank you.
I would like to thank the representative for the North America region. In the terms of reference proposed, little b has an alternative to A. So I don't think that there's any incompatibility. We can set up this small working group and try to avoid it being too big a group. With your indulgence, I would suggest that the number of participants be kept to a minimum, and that will now enable the small group to have another look at the draft and make the minor amendments suggested. So I would like to invite those who would like to participate in this small working group to request the floor so that I can ensure that their membership is noted. Thank you.
merci. Je vois ma liste qui...
Thank you. My list is getting longer and longer. We have 2 Animals Committee representatives and Plants Committee representatives and 1 party. So we have the North America region representative, Rosemary Nam. Are you requesting the floor, madam? Or how do you... I'll give you the floor. Thank you.
No, I wasn't requesting the floor. I was responding to your wanting to participate in the small drafting group, and thank you for keeping it small.
D'accord,
Okay, thank you. The chair has no sound. I'm really sorry. It's not surprising. I'm getting a little tired here. So this small working group will also include Dagmar Zikova, the representative for Europe. Now, with respect to members of the AC and PC, can I close the list? There are no further requests for the floor? Okay, let's clear those requests for the floor. I would now like to turn to observer parties. Please request the floor if you would like to join this small group. And I would stress small. The United States, China, Singapore, we don't want too big a group, so we can include some observers, at most 3 if possible. Observers, you have the floor. IUCN wishes to join. Thank you. Would any other observers like to join? AWI and HIC. I think that probably is it. We now have our small working group. I am now going to conclude our discussion on this agenda item. And we can move on to the next item.
Du commerce important de spécimens d'espèces inscrites à l'annexe 2, résolution conf 12.8, REV COP 18, et en particulier sur le point 15.
We are moving on to the next item, particularly on 15.6, that is RST at national scale, AC 31.5 and PC 25, the decision 1872. This document was prepared by the Secretariat, and it shows the parallels involving national RSTs, capacity building, covered in decisions 1838 to 1846, and the program to enhance respect for the convention, decisions 1868 to 1870. Given that updates relating to progress made in implementation and the activities on capacity building will only be presented when SC 74 meets, after the 31st meeting of the AC and PC 25, we would propose the following approach. The AC and PC are both invited to request their respective chairs and those responsible for decision 1872 identified in their work plans, AC 3172 and PC 2572, to first of all give the committee's views on these matters through the working group and during SC 74, to work in close cooperation with the Secretariat to draft new recommendations, and particularly, if necessary, to prepare draft decisions for COP19. At this stage, I would like to hear from you on these questions. The floor is open to AC and PC members, first of all. Thank you.
Désolée, décidément. Je donnais.
So I'd like to give the floor to Ms. Rosemary Nyam for the North America region.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The North American region supports the recommendation by the Secretariat that the chairs of the Animals and Plants Committees and the leads on Decision 18.72 as identified in the respective work plans of the committees. However, we suggested as in an earlier intervention that to ensure adequate regional input on these important issues, the chairs of the committees and their leads consult with members in their committees to develop recommendations for the SC working group and to SC 74. In addition, we support the Secretariat's proposal that the chairs of the Animals and Plants Committees and the leads, in consultation with their members, work closely with the Secretariat to make further recommendations on countrywide significant trade reviews, including the drafting of decisions for submission to the 19th Conference of the Parties, if appropriate. We believe that in the essence of time, this is the best way to accomplish all the work outlined in decisions 18.71 and 18.72 at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci, Madame.
I thank the representative for the North America region, Ms. Rosemary Nyam. We take note of your suggestions. And I now give the floor to members of the Animals Committee or the Plants Committees who wish to speak. So now I open the floor to observer parties. There are no requests for the floor, so now I open the floor to other observers. WCS, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and I will be brief. The statement is on behalf of WCS, AWI, David Shepherd Wildlife, Cheetah Conservation, Defenders of Wildlife, EIA, HSI, IFAW, NRDC, Pro Wildlife, Sea Shepherd Legal, SSN, and WWF. That's the long part of the intervention. We strongly support the review of significant trade and efforts to assist parties in the implementation of the convention, particularly Article 4. We're concerned about the recommendation requesting the chairs of the Animals Committee and the two leads only to work with the Secretariat to develop recommendations. We believe it is vital that other parties and observer IGOs and NGOs also have an opportunity to provide input into these recommendations. In many cases, other parties and observers have important scientific and technical information that would inform these discussions. And we're concerned that recommendations to be made by the AC and PC chairs could miss out on that important input. Perhaps the committees would consider an alternative where parties and observers are also consulted. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Merci.
I'd like to thank WCS. Are there any other observers who would like to speak? No. I will turn to the Secretariat on a technical issue. I would like to know if at this point we can take into account the interventions from the USA and WCS who request that the Secretariat be wider, including parties and observers, and to see how we can do that, under what mechanism. Thank you.
The suggestion by the representative of North America can be accommodated within the current conclusion that you suggested. it implies that actually the chairs of the Animals and Plants Committee consult the full membership of the two committees before finalizing the recommendations being brought forward to SC74. And I believe that that has always been our attention, but maybe more explicitly mentioned in the draft decisions. As regard to wider consultation with parties, with observer parties, etc., between now and SC74, that seems a complicated process. That might, of course, be a preferable approach, but in practice, it seems to be very complicated, because you would have to go back to your standing to the members of your Plants and Animals Committee, and perhaps even go through different procedures to adopt the recommendations. I believe, as already the North American representative said, that under the given circumstances, what is being proposed here is most pragmatic and practical way forward. Parties and observer parties should realize that they can make their inputs also at SC74 and ultimately at COP19. This is not the only time that they would be able to comment or provide their inputs to this type of decisions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank the Secretariat for having provided that clarification. So to conclude on this item, the decision would be as follows, knowing that the concerns that were raised by North America region will be taken into account, and to a lesser extent that of WCS, but within what is possible. So I will read the decision. The Animals Committee and the Plants Committee both agree to request their respective chairs, as well as those responsible for decision 18.72 identified in their respective work programs, AC31 Doc 7.2 and PC25 Doc 7.2, to express the opinion of the committees on these questions on the working group at the 74th session of the Standing Committee, and to work closely with the Secretariat to draw up new recommendations, and in particular, if necessary, to prepare draft decisions to submit to COP19. Thank you. We have 18 minutes left to cover the next 2 points on our agenda. I will now give the floor to Canada to present Item 35, which is Annotations, which is Decision 16.162 Rev COP 18 on the agenda. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This intervention refers to document AC31, Doc 40, PC 25, the report of the Standing Committee Working Group on Annotations, chaired by Canada. And I would like to thank the members of the working group for their valuable contributions to date. The Standing Committee re-established the working group on annotations at its 72nd meeting in accordance with Decision 16.162 with the following terms of reference: to continue reviewing the appropriateness and practical challenges resulting from the implementation of the annotations to the appendices, to develop or refine definitions of terms used in current annotations as appropriate, and to conduct any work relating to annotations directed to it by the conference of the parties, the Standing Animals or Plants Committee. To date, the focus of the working group has been on those annotations where implementation would benefit from clarification or amendment. These include annotation #4 in order to better reflect current propagation techniques for seedling or tissue cultures in trade, annotations #11 and #12 in order to provide clarity as to the regulatory status of extracts and ingredients referenced within these annotations, and annotation #14 in order to better align the English, French, and Spanish versions of the annotation. Additional actions discussed by the working group include amendment of paragraph 7 of the interpretation section of the appendices to increase clarity, and provision of guidance for interpretation of the term 10 kilograms per shipment included in annotation #15 paragraph B and the definition contained in paragraph 8 of the interpretation section of the appendices. The working group anticipates concluding its work on the proposed actions outlined in paragraphs 6 and 7 of the present document and submitting any proposed text, definitions, or guidance on those actions for consideration by the Standing Committee at its 74th meeting. Finally, Madam Chair, as is indicated in paragraph 10 of the present document, the Animals and Plants Committees are invited to take note of this interim report and to offer comments or guidance to the working group regarding the tasks included in the terms of reference in paragraph 3 of the present document. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci, le représentant du Canada.
I thank the representative of Canada for this presentation, and now I would like to invite members of the committee to briefly make their comments so that we can note the document. And we have 14 minutes left of our meeting. So if there are no requests for the floor on this item from members of the committee, from observer parties, or from observers, so I take silence as consent. I see we have a request from Israel and then from Korea. Israel, you have the floor. Please be brief if possible.
Thank you, Chair. Israel welcomes this document and certainly all the work that's done to try to align and to make sense of the annotations, which have been a terrible problem, the way they're presented. We just have a very brief comment on one of the issues is on the numbering of the annotations, the hashtag annotations as opposed to the other annotations. Renumbering annotations has implications for those parties that include the entire list of the appendices in their legislation. And any changes would necessitate changes to the actual text of legislation. And I know this issue may come up again later in the item on presentation of the appendices, so we'll raise it again there, but we wanted to bring it up now in the to the issue of the annotations too, that we would recommend not renumbering them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're quite right, Israel, because it could have an impact on the implementation of CITES. So we'll take note of your comments. Now, Korea, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. After COP 18, the Korean authority wanted to request the working group to review the issues encountered in the application of the annotation. Since we even haven't had such an opportunity in a while, our delegation would like to briefly address one of the most important issues here. Pursuant to the A and C of annotation #4, the seeds, fruits, and fruit derivatives of artificially propagated cacti and bonulus listed on Appendix 2 are exempt from the convention. Accordingly, the derivatives made from both seeds and fruits can be exempted from the CITES, but the derivatives produced from only seeds are subject to the convention. To our understanding, it is not crystal clear what the difference of the effects between fruits derivatives and seed derivatives to the wild populations, because it seems basically the same in the seeds are used in both cases. Moreover, we are also experiencing the confusion in the field. If possible, you would like to ask the working group to review the issue of seed derivatives in order to solve the problems caused by the application of the annotation. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you to the representative of Korea. The mandate that was given to the Animals and Plants Committees was to take note of the report that has been presented, and we have done so, but the concerns that have been raised will be taken into account. The Secretariat, would you like the floor?
Oui, Madame la Présidente. I just wanted to confirm and it could be invited to bring up its concern about annotation #4, which we just heard in that working group, to discuss it further. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci d'avoir exprimé plus clairement.
Thank you for having expressed more clearly what I was trying to say. I have no further requests for the floor. We have 9 minutes. I don't want to take more time up for the interpreters, so I'm going to turn once more to the Secretariat to ask if we can continue and if we can put item 40 to our next meeting. Is that possible?
Madam Chair, I believe that we have the time to cover this item in the remaining 10 minutes. So good luck with that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you to the Secretariat. So I would like to ask the indulgence of the committee members, the observer parties, and the observers to please be as brief as possible when they take the floor so that we can finish on time. So this item on the agenda is the last item, which is on guidance for the publication of the appendices. It's under decision 18.331, which responds to documents AC 3142 and PC 2540. The Conference of the Parties directs the Secretariat, in consultation with the Animals and Plants Committees, to develop guidance to improve clarity and predictability in the presentation of the appendices. The Secretariat document has one guidance draft, which was prepared in May 2020, and we have document SC 73.26 Rev 1 has an updated version. So we have had work from the comments from the presidents of the Animals Committee, the specialists for zoological and botanical nomenclature, parties, and observers. So the committee for the Plants Committee and the Animals Committee are invited to take note of document AC 31.42, PC 25.40. And if you wish to make comments on the updated version SC, we would encourage you to forward them to the Secretariat so that they can take them into account before the Standing Committee looks at and considers the guidance at its 74th meeting. I would now like to turn to committee members if they wish to take the floor. Committee members. No request for the floor. Observer parties. So we have a request from the United States of America, a request for the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We thank the Secretariat for preparing the draft guidance and the work to date. Decision 18.331 directed the Secretariat to consult with the Animals and Plants Committees as the first step. The United States is disappointed that the Animals and Plants Committee were not provided an opportunity for meaningful input or discussion on this document. We wish to clarify that noting the document does not imply agreement or endorsement. Although it may not substitute for discourse and discussion, we propose that the Secretariat consult with the AC and PC chairs and that the chairs consult with their members for input on the latest version of the guidance available in SC 73, Doc 26, Rev 1 in advance of SC 74. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you to the representative of the USA. In the presentation of the document, I said that if you had comments, it would be possible you could send them to the Secretariat. So comments on this updated document are very welcome. I look at the request of the list for the request for the floor is still open for observer parties. Otherwise, I would close this item of the agenda. We have IWMC. You have the floor.
Sur le rapport du groupe de travail.
Report of the working group of annotations, says the speaker, in terms of the numbering of the annotations, and this is with the standing committees mandate. I wanted to comment on that subject, Madam Chair. The interpreter apologizes, the sound was a little difficult.
Sur le point 35 à l'ordre du jour, et je...
The Chair says you would like some clarification on item 35. I could give the floor to Canada, who chaired this working group, but very briefly, please. Canada.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I take note of the comments made by the IWMC. IWMC are indeed members of the working group, and we will most definitely follow up on the request and information and discussion he is seeking. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci le représentant du Canada pour votre...
The representative of Canada. So to conclude this item, the Animals Committee and the Plants Committee note document AC31.42 and PC25.40. So I closed this item of the agenda, and we conclude this joint meeting of the Animals Committee and the Plants Committee. I turn to you now, the Secretariat, to see what we should do next. Do I need to do a closing statement? A little closing statement is always welcome, Madam Chair, and then I will take the floor as the Secretariat to provide clarification on work that will be taking place within the working groups in the coming week. So, first of all, I'd like to apologize to the interpreters, says the Chair, for the extra minutes we're going to run over. I'd like to thank you all for the work that we have done together. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Chair of the Animals Committee for having co-chaired this joint meeting of the Animals Committee and the Plants Committee. And I'd like to thank the regional representatives for CITES in the Animals Committee and the Plants Committee. I'd also like to thank the observer parties for having participated in this work all this week. And I would also like to thank the observers who participate in our meetings, and I'd like to thank them for their relevant contributions. Now I'd like to turn to the Secretariat to thank you for all the efforts you have made so that I could lead this meeting. Without you, I would not have succeeded. You've all provided me with excellent coaching and support. I'd like to say it's been a real honor for me to be here and to lead. It was difficult at times, you've probably felt it, but I have done my very best. And I thank you for your patience and indulgence with me. Now I'd like to give the floor to the Secretariat to make any announcements on forthcoming work. Thank you.
Madam Chair, these are just some household measures. I would like to communicate first of all. We would like to confirm that Yang Zheng, the Plants Committee Alternative for Asia, and Matthias Lurcher, the Animals Committee Chair, they will co-preside the Appendix 1 working group. So these are the two people that will co-preside that working group. Secondly, I would like to repeat what we've said before. That the in-session work groups that the Animals and Plants committees have established will deliberate next week from 7 to 11 June. They are expected to complete their mandates by Friday, 11 June. In the week after that, the week from 18 to 18 June, the Secretariat will translate and publish all the outcomes and the reports of these working groups for you to look at and consider. Just for our information, the Animals Committee has created 7 in-session working groups. The Plants Committee has created 10 in-session working groups. And we have also now just created 3 joint in-session work groups, joint ACM-PC working groups. The Animals and Plants Committee will jointly reconvene on 21 June, that's a Monday, to discuss the outputs, the results of the 3 working groups. The next day, on Tuesday, 22 June, the Animals Committee will discuss the results of its working groups. And on 23 June, on Wednesday, the Plants Committee will discuss the results of its working groups. The Secretariat will facilitate the working groups by scheduling any Zoom, MS Team meetings required and as necessary, and we will facilitate those meetings. At least one Secretariat staff member will be assigned to each of the working groups. We will send, and we plan to send actually today, the chairs of the working groups the template for the working groups reports. And also with that, we will add the mandate, the precise composition, and the emails addresses of all the participants in the different working groups. We then expect that the chairs of the working group will reach out to their membership and announce how they would like to proceed in next week. The Secretariat has prepared a schedule, a working group schedule that details when the animals, plants, and joint working groups will convene next week. With the mandates, it contains also there you can find the mandates and the composition. But we'll also specify the time and the date when exactly your working group will actually convene and discuss matters. We have tried to minimize as much as possible overlaps between different working groups. Of course, with 20 working groups spread over 5 days, it isn't always possible. We try to minimize it, and we believe that we hope that we have done our best to make it as possible for you to make it possible for you to attend as many working groups as you want, as you subscribe to. We will make this schedule available on our website, and you will find it on the green AC31 and PC25 buttons. It will be uploaded probably later today. You can find it also tomorrow, as of tomorrow morning. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Merci, Secrétariat, pour ces informations utiles. Nous allons clore.
I would like to thank the Secretariat for that useful information. We are about to conclude our work. The Chair is very kindly thanking the interpreters for all of their work. Thank you. I hope everybody's work goes well. Goodbye now.